The Battle of Stalingrad, turning point of World War II. In the winter of 1942 to 1943, the city of Stalingrad became the epicenter of one of the most pivotal and brutal battles in human history, the Battle of Stalingrad. Shrouded in agony, resilience, and sacrifice, this battle was not just a clash between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. It symbolized a fight for survival, dignity, and the strategic tide in World War II. Today, we'll uncover the true story of Stalingrad, an event that changed the course of history forever. Let's dive into this unparalleled tale of struggle and triumph. It was the year 1942. Hitler's ambitions were soaring, and Operation Barbarossa, the initial German invasion of the Soviet Union, had stalled. The Nazi leaders recognized the importance of securing an economic stronghold. Thus, Hitler launched Operation Blue, a plan to capture the oil-rich regions of the Caucasus. But there was an extraordinary secondary target: Stalingrad. Why Stalingrad, you ask? It was a city of modest significance in economic terms. However, its location on the western bank of the Volga River made it a critical supply route. Even more significant was its symbolic value. It bore the name of Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union's leader. Capturing Stalingrad meant more than logistics. It was an insult to the Soviet psyche, and Hitler couldn't pass it up. By mid-1942, the German Sixth Army, under the command of General Friedrich Paulus, was ordered to make its way towards Stalingrad. The Germans advanced with precision, initially overwhelming Soviet forces. For a moment, it seemed like another German victory was imminent. However, what Hitler and his forces didn't anticipate was the unyielding Soviet determination to defend their homeland, no matter the cost. Stalin had issued the infamous "not one step back" directive. Retreat was not an option. When the Germans reached the outskirts of Stalingrad in August 1942, they were met with scenes of utter devastation. Continuous air raids by the German Luftwaffe had reduced much of Stalingrad to rubble before infantry units even entered the city. Ironically, this destruction benefited the Soviet defense. The ruined landscape leveled the playing field, transforming Stalingrad into a colossal urban battleground resembling a torn maze. Then came Rattenkrieg, Rat War. This term encapsulates the brutal realities of the urban warfare within Stalingrad. The Germans had anticipated quick domination in open terrain, but here they were challenged at every turn. Every building, every room, and every grain silo turned into a fortress. Soviet soldiers employed guerrilla strategies, engaging in close-quarters combat that nullified the Germans' superior firepower and tactical advantages. The city's defenders included ordinary factory workers who had joined the fight, women, men, and even children committed to halting the German advance. Civilians, unable or unwilling to evacuate, were drawn into an unimaginable horror. Food was scarce. Bomb shelters became homes. Death was omnipresent. These were ordinary people turned warriors in the defense of their city. General Vasily Chuikov took charge of the Soviet forces, living among his soldiers and leading with bare-knuckled tenacity. One of his most effective tactics was keeping his troops so close to the German attackers that the Luftwaffe, Hitler's aerial juggernaut, couldn't bomb Soviet positions without risking their own soldiers. This was war at its most raw and intimate. What the Germans had thought would be their crowning glory began turning into their nightmare. As if the fighting wasn't brutal enough, the Russian winter began creeping in. By November 1942, temperatures plunged to 30 degrees Celsius, freezing supplies and morale for both sides. The Germans, ill-prepared for such icy brutality, began to falter. Yet, Paulus hoped for reinforcements, still clinging to Hitler's promise of aid that would never arrive. While the Germans were bogged down in the city, Soviet High Command under Marshal Georgy Zhukov devised a daring counteroffensive plan named Operation Uranus. Unbeknownst to the Germans, the Soviets had built up extensive reserves on the Stalingrad flanks, manned largely by Romanian and Hungarian troops, less equipped and motivated compared to the German forces. On November 19, 1942, Operation Uranus was launched. Soviet troops advanced in pincer movements to surround the city. In a matter of days, the German Sixth Army and its allies were encircled, effectively forming a pocket known as the Kessel. Over 250,000 Axis troops were trapped in and around Stalingrad. Supplies could only be flown in by air, but even that proved inadequate. Inside the pocket, chaos reigned. Soldiers faced starvation. Supplies dwindled to almost nothing. The Soviet forces tightened the noose, launching relentless attacks day and night. The physical agony was horrific, and the psychological toll was crippling. Despite the odds, Hitler refused to allow Paulus to surrender, demanding the Sixth Army fight to the last man. But by early 1943, it was clear there'd be no relief. January turned into February, and the Germans' desperation grew. Finally, on February 2nd, 1943, General Paulus defied Hitler's expectations. He surrendered. Over 91,000 German troops, frail and defeated, were taken as prisoners of war. Only about 5,000 would survive their captivity. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad was complete. It wasn't just a significant military win. It was deeply symbolic. The previously invincible German war machine had suffered its first undeniable and catastrophic defeat, and the momentum had shifted irreversibly. Stalingrad became the clarion call for Soviet resistance and sparked hope among the Allies. The numbers are staggering and reveal the sheer cost of this battle. Over 2 million people perished, including soldiers and civilians alike, making the Battle of Stalingrad one of the deadliest battles in human history. Entire districts of the city were obliterated. Yet, Stalingrad stood resilient. Its ruins would become the seeds of ultimate Soviet victory in World War II. Most importantly, Stalingrad forever altered the trajectory of the war. The Germans were no longer on the offensive. From that point onward, they were pushed back, culminating eventually in the Soviet triumph in Berlin in 1945. The Battle of Stalingrad was not just a story of one city. It was the story of a people's defiance and the resilience it takes to fight for your very existence in the darkest of times. As you reflect on the sacrifice made during the Battle of Stalingrad, remember this: history teaches us the cost of war and the price of survival. May we never forget the lessons imparted by the ruins and sacrifices of Stalingrad. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to share it with friends, hit that like button, and subscribe for more insights into history's defining moments, because the past always has something to teach us about the present.